Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Baltimore. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with GCB, Gabe Carlton-Barnes, and we are just about ready to get underway in our feature match area. There they are. Gaudenis Vidugiris on the left-hand side. You may know him from his strong performance at the World Magic Cup just last weekend against Shaheen Soorani, who is, well, let's see what he's playing. Oh, nice start. Air of the Wilds here, GCB. That's one of my favorite cards in the set, the premier 2-drop.
Absolutely, and having a 2-drop on its own in this format is great, so it's off to a good start.
Not a bad 2-drop for Gaudenis either. It is a Jeskai Elder, and wow, solid start here from Soorani. He's actually going to get to trigger Ferocious there on his Air of the Wilds and get in there for 3.
Absolutely, it's kind of the dream start. I think when you put that deck together, that's what you want to have. You have that
It's
air.
pretty dreamy.
Yeah, you got the Alpine Grizzly. Let's see if he can, trigger some more ferocious abilities.
Yeah, we're one Savage Punch away from just full glory mode over there for Soorani.
Absolutely, and that Jeskai Elder's not doing a whole lot to hold those off. He's a lot better on the play, and on the draw here, he's just sort of staring at the action. The 1-2 can't really do much.
No. It is interesting, though, because that card does create this sort of weird threat in the sense that, like, people are always very reticent to let you actually hit them and get the loots going, and for good reason, and that can add up pretty quickly.
Yeah, you want to make sure you have an extra blocker back just in case. Similar thing happens with the Alpine Grizzly, actually. People want to keep a couple creatures back because it's so big. It's easy to trade for, but it's big.
What was that? Was that 1,000 wins?
It does.
I can't quite see it because it's obscured by the graphic, but anyway, it's dead. Debilitating injury stabs that and allows Soorani to crunch in there for what, 7 damage? Wow, Gaudenis already down to 10.
Yeah, it wasn't a Savage Punch, but it was still pretty savage.
Indeed.
And indeed, that was 1,000 wins. So Gaudenis does get to loot here.
Gets in for 1 damage, but he's kind of entering desperation mode fairly quickly. His Jeskai Elder, as you mentioned, GCB, not a good blocker on its own, so he's going to attack and try to find maybe a better blocker removal spell to get rid of. Like, if he kills the Alpine Grizzly, that takes a lot of the pressure off him. It leaves Shaheen with just a 2-2, and we'll note here that Shaheen also missed his land drop last turn, so he's in battle mode here.
So Gaudenis has a chance to catch up, but certainly that means Shaheen has spells and actions, so Gaudenis has to start taking things off the table quickly so that he has time to catch up.
That's Shaheen on the right, Gaudenis is on the left, and Gaudenis is going to play Misfire Weaver face down here. But you got to figure he's just looking to block, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Just get that thing in front of the... All right, so this is a Scout the Borders from Soorani. No problem. Gaudenis is like, oh, he gets to breathe a sigh of relief. This is that tough spot in the game where if your opponent like maybe draws a land or just plays another big 3-drop, you are so far behind. But playing a card that doesn't affect the board like Scout the Borders, even though he did find the land that he's been digging for, it means he's essentially taking the turn off. You got to be happy about that if you're in Gaudenis' seat.
Yeah, absolutely. And then now here we find out why sometimes that isn't good with a Murderous Cut. He has exactly 1 mana.
Goodness sakes. And guess what? 7 more damage is going to knock Gaudenis down to 3.
Oh, man.
And as it sits, both creatures are lethal for Soorani. Now, there's a lot that can mess with that, but that's where we're at currently.
Yeah, Gaudenis has to figure out some kind of plan to just buy turns and hope that he can find a way out of this. So if he can play some sort of removal spell on Shaheen's turn, then the Elder can get big enough to trade with the Alpine Grizzly. So he could technically take out both creatures.
Something like a Bring Low here.
I think so, and I think I see a Bring Low in his hand, so
okay,
that's probably the angle he's thinking about taking.
Now he does have to be greedy here, right? Like, because the other line is to just fire that off on his main phase here and just make sure that, like, say the Grizzly dies. But he's just too far behind, right?
Yeah, I think he's too far behind and he wants to trade.
Yeah.
He was tempted there to use the removal spell and loot, or just loot and try to, sorry, when I say loot, I mean attack with the Jeskai Elder so we can see another card.
Right.
So going exactly as we expected here.
Yeah, so here comes the Bring Low, presumably to take down Air of the Wilds. That's going to trigger Prowess on the Jeskai Elder, bring it up to 2 power, and he can throw it in front of the Grizzly and get rid of both creatures. It's just a 2-for-2 for Gaudenis, but he'll take it sitting at 3 life. Now, the downside to a play like this, and the reason why I mentioned, the greedy factor on it, is that if Shaheen has a pump spell of some sort here, this can go horribly awry for Gaudenis. So,
yeah, Gaudenis makes that play.
Like, Awaken the Bear here is a massive blowout.
Right, but
he
he's
doesn't
so
have
low, he doesn't have to fear a blowout.
No, because he can't play around it anyway, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, that's a pretty scary one.
Jeez. So Soorani accepts the 2-for-2 there, but Bellowing Saddlebrute is a nice follow-up play. And there's very few cards in Gaudenis' colors that can, creatures that can profitably block that creature at 4/5. So he's going to have to do something to get that thing out of the way, and it's probably going to be chump blocking for a while.
Yeah, it looks like he's in chump block mode, so unless he draws very, very well, Shaheen's going to be able to ride that Bowling Saddle route all the way.
Yeah, I see that in Gaudenis' hand, he does have a Jeskai Charm. And assuming that Soorani has nothing else, which as we're seeing right now is not the case, he could draw a white mana source, put that thing on top of the library, maybe buy himself one turn off where he can put something big down to block, like maybe a Glacial Stalker or something like that. But he doesn't have it, and that's going to do it. Wow, Planewalker revealed for Soorani as well, so this deck looks pretty powerful. He played some nice stuff there.
Soorani's deck looks very good, especially if it can start Heir of the Wilds into Alpine Grizzly on the play.
Not bad.
That's pretty scary. And Gaudenis never found that white mana that he was hoping for. It's just more white cards.
Right.
So maybe he'll be able to put up a little bit more of a fight the next game. That was a rough one for him.
Yeah. I saw that there was a feat of resistance on the bottom of his deck there. He could have used a card like that as well to help stabilize that board, but couldn't find it. So Shaheen Soorani picks up the first game win here in Baltimore. Let's take a quick live look in.
John Finkle's matchup.
Johnny Magic. So that's him on the right-hand side of your screen there with not the plaid sleeves. And looks like Brad Minelli is his opponent here. And I gotta say, I like this board state.
This is a classic board state for this format.
Little Obzon mirror here.
A lot of white and black creatures. Got one morph, we don't know what that is. It looks like that's a flying morph for John, so he's able to get in. And
ooh.
That is a play that will win a race. He has a 5/5 flying lifelinker. What do they call that? And there's some old Baneslayer Angel, and that's what they call that. A classic card here that John seems to have assembled.
Wow, build your own Baneslayer, John Finkle, not too bad.
Yeah, and it looks like his opponent, although he has some nice board presence, none of it is really high impact. It's all just guys. Power and toughness, and only one real ability there on the Unyielding Krumar with First Strike. Nothing that's going to be able to block a flyer.
Looks like Brad decided to use Suspension Field on a Grim Haruspex down there that probably had picked up a counter from the Armament Core we see.
Yep.
He wanted to take that threat off the field, but as a result, Finkle is able to kind of go off with this Obzon guide that, like you said, not only is it making it essentially impossible to race, it's also just going to kill Brad in a couple of turns. We don't have exact life totals, but we've already seen 10 damage here over 2 turns. I can't imagine that Brad is long for this world if he doesn't find a removal spell very quickly.
Yeah, and that's sometimes the way that the cards play out. Taking away that Haruspex was a very good idea. That card can really dominate a game. So he's sort of forced probably to use that Suspension Field, and now he just needs another answer. This game is going to get out of hand.
Yeah, I think Brad's going to give up. I think he drew an Armament Core for the turn, but didn't really actually do anything here. So as we've seen so many times, John Finkle victoriously piling up his cards. Let's jump back to our main feature match here.
It's an old school player assembled an old school card and won with it.
Yes.
So now we saw that feat of resistance at the bottom of Gaudenis' library. That's the kind of card in the last game that really helps you to catch up because it costs less than 3. In this format, so many things cost 3. Anytime you can do something for less than 3 mana, it has a high impact. So those are the cards that you're hoping to be able to deploy in a situation where you're catching up like he was last time.
Yeah, do something meaningful, right? Like it's pretty tough to affect the board. There's some 2-drops in creatures that are floating around the format, but many of them don't have a high impact on the board.
Right.
And let's see if we've got some keeps from our 2 players here.
It's like Gaudenis kept, and we're off. Gaudenis starting with a dual land, just the way you want to start in this format. Get those colors of mana.
I do like that. It looks like he's got another one in his hand too, so white mana will not be a problem this game.
And it looks like we saw a mountain too, so that's probably all of Gaudenis' colors.
I mean, Gaudenis played some really nice cards there. Misfire Weaver's sweet, Thousand Winds is great.
Yeah, that was
he just was under too much pressure.
A situation where his opponent's start was just too good. And Shaheen has some great 2-drops. Look at this, Rattleclaw Mystic.
Wow.
Shaheen has some very, very good quality cards.
Yeah, we saw the Heir of the Wilds earlier.
Heir of the Wilds, and he has a Murderous Cut, which it looks like he has in his hand again this game. It's a great card to have in this format. There's not a lot of removal that plays at instant speed that can be played with very little mana. It makes morph combat complicated because your opponent spends a bunch of mana to unmorph to win a combat, thinking you don't have enough mana to morph back, and instead you just play Murderous Cut.
Right. Yeah, it serves such a fairly unique role in the format, in that there's just so few instant speed, nearly unconditional removal spells like that. You just don't see them. You know, a lot of the removal sorcery speed, debilitating injury, and the like.
So Shaheen just has a couple of little guys out here, but Gaudenis played nothing on his 4th turn. What do you think's going on over there, Marshall?
Well, it depends. I mean, Gaudenis could certainly be looking to turn his morph face up here.
I think that's a 1/5. I think we're going to see...
You're going to get a little barrier action here.
He's going to use his Feet of Resistance.
Interesting. That is risky business here.
Sure is.
And Soorani can actually punish him with the full 2-for-1 if he wants with the Murderous Cut. He has that mana.
So that counter is on the card right now. That spell actually hasn't resolved. I don't.
You're right. You just pick it off.
I think you probably do. It's clear that you take away his whole turn.
I see. Well, he wants to keep his hard removal in hand, but he does have a way to interact with the creature, which is really the most important thing here, and it happens to be Force Away.
Which is going to be great for him. He's going to get to find out what the morph is and what it is that Gaudenis wanted to add a counter to. Gaudenis thinking about responding to the Force Away.
What, does he have another Feat of Resistance?
Well, that would explain him throwing off that first feat so easily. That he might have another, and he does.
It was so risky. It just seemed like he had to have a backup plan for that.
Yeah, in fact...
So this creature's going to have pro blue and pro green?
Exactly. And he's going to be a 4/4. He's going to eat that Smoke Teller. And so now I think Shaheen can either play a 3-drop, and that looks like what he's going to do, since he's probably going to be able to resolve that Murderous Cut whenever he wants to anyway, knowing that both the Feat of Resistance are gone.
Yeah.
The only other thing to worry about would be the morph. And did he see that last game? The one that gives Hexproof. I forget what it's called.
It's called Mistfire Weaver.
Mistfire Weaver.
And yes, he did.
He did. So
yes. I think he's nervous. I mean, even if he decides not to kill it right now, he's going to take a bunch of damage from it, right?
Yeah, it's a big creature.
Yeah, there's definitely an argument to be said for let's just kill that thing.
Yeah, if it's not Mistfire Weaver, you feel bad because you're not getting
he's
involved
going to
in the
snap
board.
it off. He just doesn't want to take the risk.
It's a safe choice. It probably means that Shaheen has confidence in his hand. He doesn't want something that he can't deal with out there.
All right, this time it was a Free Weapon Master.
Which would have been pretty intimidating, but still could have been cut.
Yes, yes. True and true. But it would have been a 6-power first strike. It would have hit pretty hard.
Absolutely.
And it looks like Gaudenis, this maybe explains part of the reason why he was willing to sink to Feat of Resistance. I don't think he has much else going on here.
I don't think he has any other creatures. It looks like he may have a Master of the Way in his hand.
Well, I guess that could kill
not.
a Keru Bloodsucker if that's what he wants to do.
I'm not sure if that's what I'm seeing. It looks like he does have another land or two in his hand.
I see a Jeskai Elder.
Not the best time for the Jeskai Elder to show up.
Not really. Now, if he's got a couple of extra lands in hand and he can actually get in there with the Elder, then sure, it can pull its weight, but not the high-impact card he wanted for this stage. The good news for Vidugiris, though, I mean, Soorani just played a Keru Bloodsucker. It's not like he's, dominating this board state here either.
Certainly. It would have been a threatening to attack with two power guys. That would take your left shoulder down pretty quick. But actually, the Elder can trade with the Rattleclaw if it decides to come in. So he's got some time to draw cards and try to find a way to get into this game. It looks like we may see a chance for that trade to happen right now. Of course, Gaudenis' other option is to try to get that Jeskai Elder in and loot away that extra land he has in his hand. But
it's very tempting.
It just seems really unlikely. With Shaheen missing land drops,
now Shaheen has another Murderous Cut in hand?
He looks like he has a Kill Shot. Is that another Murderous Cut?
I thought I saw a Murderous Cut and a Disdainful Stroke.
Well, this would explain why he's not playing any more creatures. His hand is full of really, really good removal.
And he's going to block here, and this is just miserable for Go. He just has to say, yeah, sure, because even if he has an instant there, he can't really fire it off. Oh, that's a nice follow-up. Ooh, it was a Disdainful Stroke. Riverwheel Aerialist would have been really nice on this board. The most powerful creature, not really close, but it immediately gets countered, and Soorani is just like, oh, I'm home again. Yeah,
I'm sure Gaudenis is not too surprised, seeing as Shaheen has not been playing anything. Perfect opportunity to start attacking. Now, what is this?
That's a Rakshasa Vizier there from Soorani.
Oh, this is
and he's actually going to be able to go off here because he has 3 cards in his yard and a Murderous Cut in hand, I believe. And
this is looking bad for Gaudenis.
Vizier's going to get
bad.
huge.
Yep. Now, we have the deck list here. I wonder if Gaudenis has anything that he is specifically looking for. I don't see
he's got a Crippling
hostilities
Chill here.
Well, that's good.
So
That will
that can
buy him
help
some
him.
time.
He found an Alabaster Kieran with that. So that'll help stem the bleeding a little bit. But here's a Jeskai Wind Scout as a follow-up now for Soorani. And he just keeps coming with the hits here.
Yeah, it's a very tough spot for Gaudenis.
Stupid land off the top for Gaudenis again. He's got to be like, come on, enough of those.
The Kieran does stop, it looks like, everything except for the Vizier. The Bloodsucker can come in and sacrifice a creature to trade, but that he gets a block in and a trade. I'm sure Gaudenis would feel okay about that.
Yeah.
Because the Bloodsucker, of course, gets +1/+1 counter. Gaudenis reminding Shaheen that, no, indeed, your Vizier does not untap this turn. I need that extra turn to draw another answer.
Yes, that is very important. He could be dead pretty quickly otherwise. There it is, Murderous Cut.
Yeah, and
3 +1/+1 counters on my Rakshasa Vizier. Get rid of your Kieran, and that's also a trigger for the Wind Scout. So this is just a huge turn here for Soorani. He's basically setting up the kill next turn. He's made a 7/7.
Yeah,
and he's going to attack for 5 here.
And you'll note that he removed all the cards from his graveyard because he wanted those Vizier counters.
Yep.
Normally, he has extra mana he could use to spend there, but he just goes for it. And unless we see something really good from Gaudenis, he is going to think about his options.
He's in that weird spot where he just drew like a Mystic of the Hidden Way, which is supposed to be one of his win conditions, but he's so far behind now, it kind of gets awkward.
Yeah, he's going to have to try to use it on defense. And he's
in
basically in
chump
chump block mode,
Yeah,
so he's trying to figure out if it's even worth the effort. I think if he has an out, I don't know that he does. There's another spell over there.
You said he doesn't have anything like a big sweeper?
No end hostilities, and in these colors, that would be the sweeper you're looking for. Possibly.
Jeez, Soorani just never stops. This is game.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's going to do it. So Vidugiris just gets kind of trounced here. Soorani had a really... It's funny looking at game 1 versus game 2.
Yep.
Because Soorani's draws were vastly different. I mean, we saw him disdainful stroke something in the second game. And in the first game, it was all, bare beatdowns and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be some games that... what do we have now?
Oh, we're jumping back over to the John Finkle match.
Okay, great.
Yep, that's John on the right, and he just had his Planewalker debilitatingly injured.
And
which is brutal. I mean, Planewalker's one of the better uncommons in the set.
Yeah, that's rough.
Down it goes.
Debilitating injury, though, a great common. And it looks like John is on the play here. He's got more lands than his opponent. And now they're both tapped and they're thinking about something.
Yeah, what are they thinking about right now?
Looks like they're maybe discussing some kind of rules situation.
They know they can play, right? We're not holding them, I'll tell you that.
So, you mentioned about Disdainful Stroke getting played in that last match. I think, interestingly, that actually can belong in a tempo deck like we saw in Game 1. Nice way to stop your opponent from playing their catch-up card. Could have been an End Hostilities or something.
Sure.
All right, now we're getting life totals.
Yeah, John's not actually on Sultai. All right, we are back underway here. So
that's a pretty great turn 3 for Brad.
Jeez, debilitating injury, Herald of Anafenza?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty dreamy.
It is pretty great. Oh, Herald's cool, but also if you're going to start using it, that's going to spend your mana for your turn. So it sort of oftentimes comes into play and then just sort of sits there, threatening to be dangerous later.
Not me, man. Once I have it in play, I just start pounding all my mana into it. I'm like, while the sun's shining,
let's do it. Yeah,
I'm doing it.
Yeah, deal with this first, and then see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, the thing actually just ends up getting huge. That's the thing that's easy to overlook is that you're like, oh, making all these tokens, this is great. And the warriors, maybe you have some synergies with that. But also the Herald herself is just huge. It just ends up being like, oh, by the way, this is a 5/6 attack. Right. And it's like, oh, crap.
You can get it out of reach of some removal spells, some red and black removal spells.
Totally. I kind of like what he's doing here, though. Salt Road Patrol into Sultai Scavenger. It's like, these are very powerful hits, and he can kind of use the Herald as a backup plan.
Yeah, he's got a great looking game right now. He's setting up a wall on the ground. He's got a 2/5 and a series of tokens if he wants to make them, and a threat in the air. So the onus is on John to change where this game is going.
Right. Here's a debilitating injury for John.
Looks like John has some removal in his hand. He's got an Abzan Charm too.
He does, and he's going to use this opening to take out the potential long game threat of Herald of Anafenza while he can.
Yep.
Once Brad decides to put a Outlast counter on it, well, then it's out of range anyway. So he needed to kind of do that. And jeez. Armament core now too.
John is a turn behind dealing with the threats here.
He certainly is, but I think you're right, GCB. Like I see, he's got an Obs on Charm and a Rite of the Serpent in his hand, so like he's going to be able to clear these away.
Yep.
It's just, can he do it before his life total gets too low for it to matter? And I think he can.
Fortunately, yeah, this is the first time he's been attacked, so he's looking pretty good on life total. He's still at 16, and he would love to draw another land here because he only has the one black source.
Right. He found a Grim Haruspex there.
Great card, but not really what he wants to be doing. I suspect John is agonizing over the fact that the right thing to do is probably to get rid of that flyer that's giving him trouble, even though it's not the most optimal use of his mana. He's not getting anything else on the board. He's not changing the pace of the game.
Right. But does he really want to take another hit of 5? And also, but he's got a Smite the Monstrous there too, that's a great target for Smite.
It absolutely is. So we
The
don't
question
know
is,
what his
does he want
morph
to
is.
wait? No, we don't.
I think that's an important detail.
I'm assuming
too.
it's Obzon Guide because that's what we saw before, so that's the only information I have.
It looks like what he was
anything.
considering was whether or not to use his removal on his own turn.
Yeah, why would you not?
Well, he might want to threaten to unmorph so that
He doesn't
his
have
opponent.
his 5th mana here.
Well, it could be a 1/5 flyer.
Sure.
Maybe he just wants to intimidate his opponent or bluff a kill shot.
Bluff the kill shot is interesting.
And he was hoping that it would discourage his opponent from attacking with the armament core. It did not work out.
Right.
So
Now, of course, the downside to John's play there is that if his opponent does have Feat of Resistance, it can get out of hand pretty quickly. John could take 6 in the air there.
Yep.
To get ugly.
I think you saw John sort of decide, well, if he has Feat of Resistance, I'm going to be in trouble anyway, because his hand's really good. He can do 2 things next turn, so it's worth a little bit of the risk.
Okay. Well, it worked out anyway. Sultai Scavenger comes flapping to the ground after the Smite the Monstrous kills that. But he does take 4 damage from the Armament Core. Yep. And on top of that, Mardu Hateblade's is going to start getting in there for an annoying 1 damage turn. And the Disowned Ancestors is sort of going to start that slow tick upwards towards 2, 3, whatever.
And likely Saltwater Patrol will as well, because he's got plenty of mana and he's used up most of the cards in his hand, and he certainly doesn't need to play defense.
Is this suspect for you if you're John?
It is suspicious. And the Haruspex comes out face up so that John can he can just block and trade for that Hateblade if he wants. You know, he's threatening a play, which he's probably not excited about, although he does have Feat of Resistance in his hand.
Who does?
John.
Oh, so he's certainly representing that.
Yeah, and so,
wow.
Oh, Molten Snakeskin. That is not the card you expect to see.
That is not the card you expect to see.
This is the kind of fun I was talking about.
See, this is what you wanted. This is exactly,
Exactly.
You got what you want. I'm really unhappy. What is that card doing on the battlefield? But
well, look how scary it is right now. It's a 6/4 Regenerator.
It's super scary.
Likely, John is going to be able to deal with it pretty easily. He can untap
and it's on charm. Yeah. And that exiles.
And it exiles.
So, no shenanigans for you, Brad Minelli. But
if he drops John to 6 here,
yeah, where does that put him?
John's really on the defensive. He's still slightly behind on board. Fortunately, Brad with no follow-up. Fortunately for John.
No attack with the Mardu Hateblade there from Brad.
No, that's interesting.
He could just jam it in there, right?
Maybe he didn't want John to draw another card. Maybe he said, I think your morph's not good. I don't want to trade this for that because that'll give you a chance to draw an out to my my 6/4.
That could be. I mean, John does have 4 or 5 cards in his hand, so you have to, factor that in. But yeah, could be the thinking.
It looks like Brad's hand is a kill shot, which is not the card you want to have here when you're, trying to close someone out. I think we'll see the charm here. This is interesting. John, maybe
what
talking
John's
about priority.
He's trying to figure out how much time's left in the round.
I see. Okay. Oh, and this is going to be a Willy Loxodon. Hey, that's pretty good. Okay.
So I guess he will not
have Zed Charm. And Brad regenerates, which is fine. And now he's looking pretty good on leaving that Hateblade back, although unlikely that John's quite in attack mode yet.
Yeah, I think I still just jammed with that Hateblade.
But with Brad showing no way.
Oh, no. You see what's in John's hand?
Oh, yes.
Kintree Invocation. It's a 7/7.
That was a huge turn. Brad here attacking with lethal damage, thinking maybe he's got John in, chump block mode. Instead, John just gets to I mute your entire attack with my 6/7, and now I have a turn to breathe, and I can generate a gigantic token creature.
Wow.
To go with my gigantic unmorphed Woolly Loxodon.
By the way, kind of funny, that's a Grim Haruspex out the top for Brad, too.
Oh, how
so
about
he's
that?
like, I can do this.
We can play this game.
Yeah,
Well,
so this actually
interesting.
does get interesting now because John's game plan was to turn this game around and now start attacking with 6/7s and 7s and 7/7s and stuff and trying to sort of chip away here, but
Yeah, you don't want to play that game with a
That's a lot less
Haruspex.
appealing with the Haruspex on the table.
Well, John does have the wall. He can just start attacking Brad's life total
Nothing, from 21 to 0 with
21
the
to
old
0.
parapet.
one at a time. Well, it forces Brad to take action. It forces Brad to try to change the way the game is going. And so then John can use his reactive cards to foil those plans. And he's got some nice reactive cards in his hand. He's got a Feat, he's got a
Obzon Charm.
Obzon Charm, and he's got Rise of the Serpent. So it's going to be tough for Brad to start breaking through, even though it looks so close right now.
All right, so John's now going to pick up the 2-for-1 here
So
with
maybe
the
John's-
Obzon Charm.
Looks like John might have decided to be aggressive. Maybe that's why he was asking how much time was left in the round.
He wants to just turn this thing right around on Brad.
Yep. Start attacking. So he's that Haruspex is going to be interesting. You know, trading off one of your big guys from Mario Hateblade and having the Haruspex let him draw a card does not seem appealing.
And it looks like John agrees. He's like, I don't want to do that.
Let's try something else.
Obzon Guide on in hand now for Brad.
Now you wonder if John maybe noticed the 3 mana that getting left untapped and unused when Brad wasn't outlasting earlier. Brad may have telegraphed that kill shot.
Yes.
And so you see John, he had the Feat of Resistance. He could have made the attack, and when the Hateblade blocked, given his creature pro white. But I think he knew there was a kill shot.
Yeah. I think
And so
does, too.
he decided not to make that play.
I think he knows.
The risk of having Outlast and kill shot in your deck at the same time.
John Finkle knows what's up. He's not running into that.
Yeah, certainly not.
And there's the Rite of the Serpent to kill the Haruspex and take that whole angle off. And John deftly still has left up his Feat of Resistance mana as
Certainly
well.
has. Oh, well, we get to see here if he's going to try to use it when the Hateblade blocks. So now we'll see if he has the read on the kill shot. Oh, this is fun.
This is sweet.
He's going to do it. Nope. Oh, my gosh. He passes priority.
So Finkle must have passed priority there.
Yep.
And now he gets to save one of these creatures.
I think he'll probably save.
7/7, right?
Well,
What's the difference here?
there's bounce spells is the difference, but I think it's the Hateblade dying allows. I'm not sure what the advantages of the Loxodon surviving. I think.
Does the Haruspex care about whether it's a token creature or not?
Well, that would be good for John then to lose the Loxodon and draw the card. And it looks like maybe it does. John did not draw a card.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't think it does. I think he was supposed to draw a card in that situation and maybe just missed the trigger. So here we see an Absent Guide from Brad. Now it's going to be hard for John to close out because he's going to have to hold a creature back to stop that Absent Guide from gaining Brad a bunch of life. So maybe back to the parapet plan. But nope, John attacks. So he must have drawn something.
Wow. Brad's chump blocking?
Or not. Well, so the exchange here, I guess, is 7 versus 4. Brad's gaining 4, John's dealing 7 once he gets through those creatures. So John's okay with the, I'll let you gain 4 life each time you attack with your Absent Guide.
Ooh, here's Savage Punch, though. That's going to take down the Grim Haruspex, it looks like.
And it's going to make that Absent Guide lethal this turn, so John's going to have to block with his Archer's Parapet.
Wow.
That was a very good draw face for Brad. You know, and it looked like John had turned this game around.
Oh, he just passed his turn back.
That's very surprising.
He should have attacked with his guide.
I think so. I think it just eats the Archer's Parapet there. He gains 6,
You
so he's
gain
not
6
worried about
life.
the crackback.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. And he just gained another 6, so he's got lots of life.
Yeah, I think what Brad's fallen into is a common trap where you feel, oh wow, by the way, this Woolly Loxodon now has lifelink.
It sure does.
So that precarious 6 is about to turn into a 13 here.
This is why time left in the round is a consideration. These decks can gain a lot of life.
Wow, Solver Patrol chump blocks here as well.
This game just keeps turning back and forth. You know?
It does. But I think that Brad has fallen for a common trap, which is you feel like you're behind, but you're not as far behind as you actually feel like you are.
Right.
He started chump blocking a little early where he could start putting some Outlast counters, use up some of his life total. Sure, he's taking 7, but he could take 2 hits and still be alive.
And with that Absent Guide, he still has it in play. You know, he could have been gaining life. He missed some opportunities to attack there. So maybe, yeah, his approach to where he was in the game, you know, he thought he had it won. John had just the perfect card a couple of times.
Yep.
And now he's feeling like he's behind.
Now he feels like he's behind and he wants to try to sit back. So
It looks like John just drew a Dune Blast.
what?
Yeah.
Geez, this doesn't seem fair. You give that guy those cards?
It's pretty good for John. Yep. And Brad now taking the opportunity to gain life off of his Absent Guide, but it doesn't look good. Yeah, that is a Dune Blast. And now a Ruthless Ripper. So he has the fabulous play he can make here where he puts
Reveals.
Ruthless Ripper down, face down, and just to let you know I have this Dune Blast.
Just showing you the Dune Blast.
Which I don't think John will do, but would be funny.
It would be sweet. Oh, he's not doing it.
Of course not. He wants to.
I mean, he is giving up 2 life loss
He is giving
by
up
not
2.
making that play.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe he would have drawn in the Absent Guide more willingly if he had played it face down. But I think John probably making the strategically superior play. If we get into a situation where Brad draws a bunch of good cards all in a row and John draws land, he wants to make sure that Brad doesn't know about the Dune Blast.
I mean, that being said, Brad, what is he going to do? Not play his good cards in a row? Like, he's kind of got him in a bad spot here.
Absolutely.
And John just keeps ticking up the Battle Priest there. Okay.
That is a good draw step. That is good.
Brad finds Suspension Field here.
And
Is it too late? That's the question, because that Battle Priest is now huge. It's
know,
a 6/5.
Brad worked so hard in the early game to get John down to 6, and look at John's life total now. It's at 34.
Yeah, 34.
The whole pace of the thing has changed.
Wow.
And John's also built now another creature that can attack through that Absent Guide. So the Suspension Field, just a little bit late.
Yep, so John has this sort of perfect little setup where he gets to attack with his big lifelinker, he gets to ping with the Parapet, and the Ruthless Ripper gets to hold back the Obzon Guide. Was that a Dune Blast? Please tell me that was a Dune Blast.
That was a Dune Blast.
All I want to know is that that was a Dune Blast. It was!
There's a reason that he wasn't conceding this game as far behind as he was. And you can see him point at his Absent Guide to choose it.
Wow!
Man, so many turns earlier in this game that Dune Blast was lethal. So
Yes.
John gets his ping in, dropping Brad to 5. He's going to go back up to 9 here, but John's at 40. Brad's at 9. I think what we're going to see here, John has to decide whether he's going to use his Dune Blast to kill that thing while the life totals are so different, or whether he's going to wait and see if he can get a little more value out of it. Because,
I mean, it depends on his creature, right?
well, yeah, he has no follow-up.
He has nothing?
He has nothing. He's just got land and Dune Blast.
So he's going to trade some life total for some value here,
Yeah, he is.
potentially. Okay.
And here comes the value, right off the top.
right.
Brad playing creatures.
Now the question is, how far does he take this?
Right. Well, and Brad kind of has to do this because John's life total is so high. He needs to
Yeah.
start chipping it away. This actually was a Chief of the Edge, so that Absent Guide now getting in for 5 a turn. Okay, now
So
John
is
is
it
going to
time?
cast the Dune Blast, it looks like.
No?
Or
What did he
no.
draw? He drew a creature. Oh,
Oh.
a 6/6. Oh, no.
That is perfect. That is
This
perfect.
is too good. Look at Finkle, hands on his head. What am I going to do?
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what you're going to do? You're going to force your opponent to overextend.
And then Dune Blast.
Dune Blast, the
And
ever-loving.
John has kept some lands in his hand, which means he can do this thing where he's playing a land each turn and representing that he just has nothing. He just hasn't been drawing anything.
Tough luck, John Finkle.
Yeah, he can play the tough luck plays, drawing more out, but he's just
No,
going to
he's
go
going
for
for
it.
it.
Brad's at 14. That makes perfect sense.
Makes sense, right? He saw Brad not play a creature that turn
Yep.
and figured, how about we just kill you in 3 turns here?
Yep. And it looks like Brad, right on the edge, he has all lands in hand. John's going to put him down to 2, and if John wants to deploy another creature here that he's drawn, I don't know if he has. He has.
And it's lethal.
And now Brad looking for another Wrath effect.
Yes. Yeah, because now John has 2 lethal creatures.
And
And he doesn't
not
do
going
it.
to cut it. Wow.
Has to extend
that
the hand.
was a great game.
John Finkle, Dune Blast, re-Dune Blast.
Yeah, how many Dune Blasts did you want this round? We got all the Dune Blasts you need.